Welcome back, and if you're new here, welcome and thank you for watching. If you like the content, please like and subscribe to the channel. And if you find it relevant for someone else you know, please share the content. We are back and we are talking about grief and the brain and the nervous system, and we're also talking a bit about shame and how that can also impact the grief process. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Um, yes, the top of mind question: how long should it take to get over grief and a loss?
There is no timeline for healing or for grief. What I believe happens is our brain has a map that we've constructed over decades, and that map includes all of our predictions, our expectations, how we think things are supposed to go, relationships and the world. And when loss comes along, it rips that map to shreds. And so it takes our brain time to reconstruct that map, to trust again, to feel safe again after a loss.
How does loss and grief tend to manifest? I tend to imagine it's feeling like you just can't get out of bed.
Grief does manifest for some like they can't get out of bed. It also looks a lot like people are functioning well on the outside, but on the inside, they are very numb. They're going through the motions of life. They often say things like, I'm on the outside looking in, I'm watching myself, I'm just going through the motions, but I feel really numb.
Now, in the intro, you'd mentioned shame. Can you explain a bit more about that?
We don't often think about shame and grief being tied together, but they are in the sense that many people often hear, you're still grieving? You're not over that yet? You should be over that by now. You should be further along. And that adds a layer of shame because grief is already really hard work and our brain is trying to manage that. And yet, when we feel shame on top of that, our brains interpret that as another threat to our sense of safety, another threat to our well being. And so now we're having to juggle grief and self criticism.
What all is the brain doing behind the scenes that can really change the duration it takes for somebody to get over a loss?
When we are first experiencing a loss, our brain tends to put us in essentially psychological intensive care. And so it intentionally numbs things for us so we don't feel as much. It intentionally then, though, also has our nervous system on this low level of alert of I can't trust the world. I don't feel safe in the world. I might lose someone else again. And it keeps that alert alarm on for quite some time after we've experienced a loss. And so it can be really hard for our brain to function as we would like it to. That's why our memories become like we put our keys in the refrigerator, in acute grief. We burn the toast because we forgot we even put toast in the toaster. We go to put the leash on the cat versus the dog to go for a walk. Those things are really normal because that's our brain just trying to navigate grief.
Well, there's so many different losses that people experience during life, and grief, I would imagine, is associated with many of those, but it seems that there's some instances where it's overwhelming. What tends to cause that?
Grief can be very overwhelming for many people, and it's not so much about the type of loss. Although, if we experience a death by suicide, death by homicide, death by overdose, those sudden losses add extra layers of guilt, extra layers of questions we don't have answers to, extra layers of stigma and shame. But in this instance, I'm thinking about things like if we experience multiple losses all at one time or close together, our brain doesn't know how to grieve all of that. And that complicates our grief process. If we had to go from experiencing the death of a loved one to then being the caregiver for someone, our grief waits for us. It waits until we have time to address it, and it can then be stuck. If the loss was with someone that you had a very ambivalent relationship with, that also can complicate the grief process and make it feel stuck.
Well, I know I've heard the statement, "I'm sorry for your loss," more times than I can count, and it never does anything useful. What does actually helpful look like?
It definitely doesn't help to force our grief to move forward. What does help is a few things. One, finding a safe place to tell the story of the loss, talking about them, sharing those memories, having someone that can hold that space and sit with you and really share in those memories with you. It can help to take really gradual, gentle steps back towards your current sense of reality. So I think about things like if you like going to movies and you shared that with a loved one, maybe you go to a different movie theater and see a movie that person wouldn't have wanted to see. You can take a step back towards your reality, take a step back towards starting to spend time with friends and increase connection so that you can begin to build that sense of safety in your world and people around you.
Yeah. And when in this process should somebody start thinking about seeking professional help rather than going it alone?
Going it alone is actually one reason why I think people would benefit from professional help, because none of us should have to carry our grief on our own. And we help ourselves greatly by having someone to talk about that loss with, someone to process everything with that's coming up. Friends and family can be helpful for that, but it really helps having a dedicated space with someone that doesn't know anything about your history and about your story except what you share with them. Also, I think when grief is interfering with your daily functioning, you can't get out of bed. You're not getting the dog out for walks. You're not able to return to work, and do the job that you would like to be able to do, or you haven't figured out your sense of purpose and identity now since the loss. Those are all good reasons to seek professional help.
Well, Beth, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for being here, and stay tuned as next month it's Manilo's birthday, so we're going to do a bit of a break from the formal conversations and learn more about him and who he is when he's not in his working role. And again, if you like the content, please press the like button and subscribe. If you want to learn more about me, my website is transitioningthroughchange.com. And thanks for watching.